Something was left unfinished for you today, and the person who carries your name quietly in their heart is afraid the moment may disappear before you ever understand what they were trying to say. Not long ago, they stood alone beside a window while the last light of evening stretched across the floor. Their phone rested in their hand, its screen glowing against their face, but they were not scrolling, calling, or searching for anything. They were staring at a message they had written for you, a message so honest that reading it back made them lower the phone and close their eyes. They had typed your name first, then erased it. They wrote, "I need you to know what happened." They erased that too. For several minutes, the blinking cursor became the only movement in the room. Outside, distant traffic passed beneath the fading sky, and somewhere nearby a door closed softly. Yet they barely noticed. Their attention was fixed on one question: how do you tell someone they changed your heart without making them feel responsible for saving it? That is why the message did not begin with a confession. It began with a memory. They wrote about a moment you may not even remember clearly. A simple moment. Nothing dramatic happened. There was no grand promise, no perfect speech, no music rising in the background. You were simply being yourself, unaware that they were watching the way you responded to something difficult. Someone had disappointed you that day. You had every reason to become cold, but you did not. You became quiet instead. You stepped away, gathered yourself, and chose not to wound anyone with the pain you were carrying. Your soulmate remembered the restraint in your voice. They remembered the sadness you tried to hide. Most of all, they remembered that even while hurting, you still asked whether everyone else was okay. That small act stayed with them longer than you could imagine. At first, they did not understand why. They thought admiration was supposed to arrive loudly, through undeniable chemistry, breathtaking appearances, or unforgettable conversations. But what they felt for you grew through quieter evidence. It formed in the pauses between your words, in the kindness you offered when there was nothing to gain, and in the way you carried invisible burdens without using them as an excuse to become cruel. Still, they resisted the meaning of it. They told themselves they were only curious about you. Then they called it concern. Later, they tried to name it friendship, timing, coincidence, anything except what it was becoming. But each name they gave it became too small. The message they wrote today explains that there was one particular night when they could no longer deny it. They had been surrounded by people, laughter, conversation, and the clinking of glasses. Someone asked them a harmless question about what kind of person they hoped to build a future with. They gave a casual answer at first. Someone loyal. Someone honest. Someone who understands silence. But as they spoke, details of you began slipping into every sentence. They described the way you notice when another person becomes uncomfortable. They spoke about someone who does not perform kindness for attention. They mentioned a person who may retreat when overwhelmed but never truly stops caring. With every word, the room seemed to fade around them, because they suddenly realized they were not describing an imaginary future. They were describing you. One person at the table noticed. That person leaned closer and asked, "Are you talking about someone specific?" Your soulmate smiled, but it was not a relaxed smile. It was the kind of smile people wear when a truth has reached them before they are ready to speak it aloud. They answered, maybe. Yet inside, the answer was already yes. After that night, something changed. They became more aware of your absence. A day without hearing from you felt unusually long. When something meaningful happened, you were the first person they wanted to tell. When they saw something beautiful, their mind quietly imagined your reaction. But the deeper their feelings became, the more careful they grew. You may have interpreted their caution as distance. You may have wondered why they sometimes stepped closer and then suddenly became difficult to read. You may have questioned whether their silence meant indifference, uncertainty, or the presence of someone else. The truth was more complicated. They were not afraid of caring for you. They were afraid that caring for you had become powerful enough to rearrange the life they thought they wanted. Before you, they had built an emotional world with locked doors and predictable rooms. They knew where everything belonged. They knew how much to reveal, when to retreat, and how to appear unaffected. Their life may not have been completely fulfilling, but it felt manageable. Then you entered their thoughts without forcing your way in. You did not demand that they open their heart. You simply made them notice how long it had been closed. That frightened them more than they admitted. So they tested the feeling by creating distance. They told themselves that if they went several days without checking for your name, the intensity would fade. They became busy. They answered slowly. They filled their schedule and surrounded themselves with distractions. But something unexpected happened during that distance. They did not forget you. They began remembering you more clearly. In the silence, they noticed all the details they had overlooked when you were closer. The way your voice changed when you were trying not to sound disappointed. The way you became playful when you finally felt safe. The way you sometimes offered reassurance to others while secretly needing reassurance yourself. And then they recognized something painful. While they were protecting themselves from vulnerability, they may have made you feel unwanted. That realization became the reason for the message. They did not write it because they suddenly became fearless. Their hands still trembled. Their thoughts still argued with each other. One part of them wanted to send everything immediately. Another part warned them that once the truth reached you, they could never return to the safety of pretending. But a special moment was approaching, and they knew silence could cost them something that might never return in the same form. The moment was not a deadline on a clock. It was a shift inside you. They sensed that you were beginning to release the hope you once carried for them. Perhaps you had grown tired of decoding mixed signals. Perhaps you had finally started choosing peace over uncertainty. Perhaps some part of you had decided that love should not require constant guessing. They felt that change before you announced it. They noticed it in your energy, your restraint, and the way you no longer reached toward them with the same openness. You were not punishing them. You were protecting what remained of your tenderness. And for the first time, your soulmate understood that your patience was never endless. This changed the message completely. What began as a quiet explanation became an emotional reckoning. They wrote, "I thought I had more time." Then they stared at those words for a long while. They admitted that they had mistaken your understanding for permanence. Because you were compassionate, they assumed you would always recognize what they could not say. Because you had seen their guarded nature, they believed you would continue reading between every line. But love cannot survive forever on unspoken meanings. They knew that now. So they continued writing. They told you there were moments when they nearly contacted you. Once, late at night, they opened your conversation and typed 3 full paragraphs. They explained everything, the fear, the longing, the confusion, and the future they had secretly imagined. Before sending it, they read your last message again. It was warm, but something in it felt tired. They became ashamed that you had offered them sincerity while they kept giving you fragments. So they deleted the paragraphs, thinking they should wait until they could express themselves perfectly. But perfect words never came. Only deeper silence did. Another time, they saw you unexpectedly or saw something that reminded them so strongly of you that the difference barely mattered. Their entire body reacted before their mind could intervene. Their heart accelerated. Their attention narrowed. For one breathless second, they felt the truth without defenses. They missed you. Not merely your presence. They missed who they became near you. Around you, they felt more honest. More visible. More alive. You awakened a version of them that did not need to control every outcome. Yet instead of moving toward that freedom, they stepped backward because it felt unfamiliar. The message finally names what they were truly afraid of. It was not rejection. It was acceptance. They were afraid you might love them sincerely, because sincere love would require them to stop hiding behind old wounds. It would require them to believe they could be chosen without performing, proving, or pretending. That belief had never come easily to them. Someone in their past had taught them that affection could vanish without warning. They learned to watch for changes in tone, delayed replies, and subtle withdrawals. They became skilled at leaving emotionally before anyone could leave them physically. Then you arrived with a different kind of presence. You did not chase them when they withdrew, but you did not shame them either. You gave them room without becoming cruel. That balance confused them. They were accustomed to extremes, people who held too tightly or disappeared completely. You did neither. You stood with dignity. And your dignity made them realize that one day, you might walk away peacefully, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally chose not to abandon yourself. That day suddenly felt close. So your soulmate returned to the message and wrote the sentence they had avoided for months. I know I may have made you question what you meant to me. Their eyes filled when they read it. Not because it sounded beautiful, but because it was true. They remembered every moment they had acted unaffected while secretly hoping you would stay. Every time they ended a conversation too early, then reread it afterward. Every occasion when they almost offered reassurance but allowed pride or fear to silence them. They realized you had been standing outside a door they wanted to open, while they kept whispering from the other side that they needed more time. Now the hallway was becoming empty. The message grew longer. They told you that you were never difficult to care about. You were never too much. Your depth did not frighten them because it was wrong, it frightened them because it reached places they had spent years avoiding. They wrote that your sensitivity was not weakness. Your caution was not coldness. Your desire for clarity was not neediness. You were asking for something simple, truth that matched behavior. and they had not given it. But then, just as the message seemed ready to become an apology, its emotional direction shifted again. Your soulmate confessed that something had happened today. A conversation. Someone close to them had noticed their restlessness and asked why they seemed distracted. At first, they avoided the question. But the person persisted. Is this about the one you never talk about directly? Your soulmate froze. They had not realized anyone could see it. The person continued, every time their name comes near the conversation, you become a different person. Your soulmate tried to laugh it away, but the observer said something that removed every defense they had left. They said, you keep waiting to feel ready. What happens if they become ready to live without you first? The room went silent. Those words followed your soulmate long after the conversation ended. They heard them while driving. They heard them while standing beneath running water. They heard them when they picked up their phone and opened your name again. What happens if you become ready to live without them first? That question is why the special moment matters. Your soulmate believes you are standing at an emotional threshold. On one side is the hope you once held for this connection. On the other is a new life in which you stop waiting for what remains uncertain. They do not want to trap you in the past. They do not want to ask you to shrink your growth or abandon your peace. But they need you to know that while you were learning to release them, they were finally learning how deeply they wanted to choose you. And yet, that is not the biggest revelation in the message. Near the end, they wrote something they had never admitted, not to their friends, not to their family, and perhaps not fully to themselves. They revealed that they had already made a private decision about you. Not a fantasy. Not a passing wish. A real decision. They had taken one quiet step toward changing the situation between you. It involved a conversation they had been avoiding and a truth that could alter how you understand their recent distance. But just before they explained exactly what they had done, their phone lit up with something unexpected. Your soulmate stared at the new notification, and the color drained from their face. It concerned you. It made them realize the message could no longer remain unsent. Their thumb moved toward the screen, but before pressing send, they added one final line, words that may change everything once you understand what happened moments before they wrote them. I was going to ask you to wait for me, but after what I just discovered, I may be the one who has to come to you before it is too late. My beloved child. There are moments in life when the loudest change arrives without anyone hearing a sound. No crowd gathers. No music rises. No extraordinary sign appears across the sky. Instead, a single heart makes a decision it has postponed for far too long, and from that quiet choice, an entirely different future begins. When your soulmate looked at the unfinished message one last time, they realized they were no longer writing to protect themselves. They were writing to tell the truth. The unexpected notification they had received was not a warning of disaster. It was a simple reminder that life never waits for perfect timing. Someone had unknowingly mentioned that you were beginning a new chapter, focusing on your own peace, smiling again in ways they had not seen before. It wasn't that you had forgotten them, it was that you had finally stopped placing your life on hold. For a long moment they simply sat there. Their heartbeat slowed. Then, instead of panicking, something beautiful happened. Fear gave way to clarity. "I don't want them to wait forever," they whispered to themselves. "I want them to know how much they truly mean to me." For the first time, they understood that love was never meant to be hidden behind perfect circumstances. It was never supposed to arrive only after every insecurity disappeared or every unanswered question had been solved. Love asks for honesty. And honesty cannot grow inside silence forever. They opened the message again. This time they stopped deleting sentences. Every word remained exactly as it came from the heart. They wrote about the ordinary moments that had become unforgettable. They admitted that your kindness had challenged the walls they had spent years building. They confessed that every attempt to create distance only revealed how deeply connected they already felt. Then came the sentence that changed everything. "I never wanted to lose you. I was only afraid of becoming someone important enough to lose." The moment those words appeared on the screen, years of emotional armor seemed to fall away. There was no dramatic miracle. No perfect ending handed to them. Only truth. And somehow, truth felt stronger than certainty. Meanwhile, without knowing any of this, you had been changing too. You had spent countless nights wondering whether you had imagined the connection. You questioned your instincts. You replayed conversations, searching for meanings hidden between ordinary words. Eventually, something inside you softened. Instead of chasing answers, you began choosing yourself again. You rediscovered forgotten dreams. You laughed more freely. You gave your energy back to the people who filled your life with peace instead of confusion. You were no longer waiting for someone else to decide your worth. Ironically, that quiet transformation became the very thing your soulmate admired most. Because real love is never built upon desperation. It is built when two people become whole enough to meet each other honestly. As dawn approached, they looked outside. The first light painted the horizon in soft gold, reminding them that every sunrise arrives gradually. Darkness never argues with the morning. It simply gives way. That became their answer. Instead of wondering whether every outcome could be guaranteed, they chose courage over certainty. Their finger hovered above the screen. One deep breath. One steady heartbeat. Then they pressed send. The message was no longer trapped inside unfinished drafts or hidden behind hesitation. It was free. Whether it led to a conversation, a new beginning, forgiveness, or simply understanding, it finally carried the truth it had always been meant to carry. Because sometimes the greatest gift we can offer another person is not perfection. It is authenticity. And perhaps that is the quiet lesson hidden inside this story. The people who are meant to transform our lives rarely do so through grand speeches or impossible signs. They change us through compassion, patience, forgiveness, and the courage to tell the truth before another precious moment slips away. If someone has ever reminded you to believe in kindness again, cherish that gift. If someone has helped you become a better version of yourself, let gratitude replace fear. And if your heart has been waiting for the right moment to speak honestly, remember that the right moment is often created by courage, not discovered by chance. Whatever path lies ahead, may you never measure your value by another person's hesitation. May you recognize the quiet strength already living within you. May your heart remain gentle without becoming fragile, hopeful without becoming dependent, and open without losing its wisdom. May peace guide your choices. May healing accompany every unanswered question. May love, in its healthiest and truest form, find you at the moment you are ready to receive it. And may every new beginning remind you that the brightest chapters are often written after the longest seasons of uncertainty. Thank you for sharing this fictional inspirational journey with us. If this story touched your heart, consider liking the video, subscribing for more uplifting stories, and sharing it with someone who may need a little hope today. Until our next story, may peace, courage, and light accompany you wherever your path leads.